Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be discussing what I thought of the latest and very good, very entertaining episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I am now officially caught up and ready to go along for the rest of the ride like you guys are. Oh man, what a fun episode this was. No. Before I get into all of that, of course, please be warned, this is a spoiler-filled review, so if you're not caught up on Strange New Worlds like I previously was, you don't want to keep watching or listening to this review, as I will be discussing spoilers, plot details, character stuff, all that jazz. That being said, let's dive right back into it. So, first and foremost, what an entertaining premise for an episode. They turned several crew members into Vulcans temporarily, and all sorts of shenanigans followed. This felt like one of those classic storylines out of Star Trek where something happens that affects the entire crew or a majority of the crew, and then those unaffected have to work to figure out what happened and how to reverse or change what's happening. And that's exactly what we got. I was able to overlook the fact that somebody who normally I can't stand in real life, but I can stand him in my entertainment. If he appears in a show or a film as a character, he's far more tolerable. But as a person, I can't stand Patton Oswalt. However, he was quite tolerable in this episode. And I found it quite easy to enjoy this episode despite his presence in it. He actually played a very funny character, had a funny role to play, and I was able to tell myself, well, it's not Patton Oswalt, it's his character, Doug. So, overlooking that, I still very much enjoyed this episode. Hats off to the cast who briefly turned into Vulcans. They all absolutely nailed it. It was both funny and kind of heartbreaking at the same time because of how dickish they all were. And the shenanigans they got into was quite funny, although La'an seemed hell-bent on a military takeover of the ship. And then thanks to Spock literally dancing with her in her mind, he was able to bring her back to herself, recenter herself, and remind her who she truly and really is and whatnot. And then watching the other characters deal with the fallout of themselves being Vulcan was also quite gratifying to watch as well. I did love the little detail they included there in this episode when Batel loses it at dinner and calls out the Vulcan Admiral and Pike for their behavior and how they conduct themselves is what actually earns her the promotion to the Vulcan Admiral's old job once he retires. So I was like, all right, good for her. Nice career bumper move up the ladder. And now she is going to have his job once he retires, presumably. And it was because of her little human outburst is what impressed him so much. So awesome. I'm glad it worked out for her. But yeah, this episode was definitely more humorous and lighthearted than some episodes are. Some episodes can be and get quite dark, where some episodes can be more fun and lighthearted and have a bit of a glow about them, and that's exactly what this episode was. And if it's done well, if the story is right and it maintains a balance of seriousness and comedy, it works well. And in my opinion, this episode, it worked well. It wasn't too silly or goofy, and it wasn't too serious or too dark, even though there were some moments there where you're like, oh God, are they severing or ruining their friendships and relationships with everybody else because they've become Vulcans now? Temporarily they did, but now thankfully they were able to change all that. So fortunately that didn't happen. That didn't have any long-term lasting damaging effects. Although it was pretty funny how Spock was like, I'm glad you've become accustomed to Vulcan bluntness because your soup is terrible. But this was a fun episode. I enjoyed it a lot, especially hats off to Uhura, La'an, Pike, and Chapel for all playing Vulcans exceedingly well. I think Ethan Peck, who plays Spock, would be very, very proud, and I'm sure he was, because they all nailed it, in my opinion. So that was a fun watch. I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. Guys, this is the 8th episode, which means we only have 2 episodes left this season. What's going to happen? What's going to go down? I don't know, but I'm very excited for it. And I also can't believe we're this far along into the season as it's almost over. Where the hell did the time go? Summer sure blew by fast, didn't it? Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your night. I appreciate you bearing with me as I play catch up on my content. Thanks again for watching. And of course, until next time, live long and prosper.